I'm your host, U.S. Army flight surgeon and Iraq combat medic, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. And I have a very special guest. He actually is working with the DAV. And he told me that, we have some things coming up. So Steve Bramer is a U.S. Army Iraq Purple Heart recipient, veteran, and Hammond DAV Chapter 17 service officer. Thank you for your service overseas. Thank you for your service in this country. And thank you for helping our veterans. And we have a discussion today, but this is the Hammond DAV Chapter 17 updates and upcoming November 11th Veterans Day activities. I think Steve told me before that he was going to give me a breakfast if I come on the 11th, but I'll have to go back to that later. How are you doing, Steven?
Good. How are you doing?
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I do owe you a breakfast. Yes.
So it looks like Chapter 17 is on the move in Hammond. What are the updates and upcoming November 11th Veterans Day activities? Because that's a very special day for all of us.
Yes, it is. And, November's a big month for veterans in general. Yeah. DAV specifically, for our area, we have two events that are in November. One is going to be November 9th, and that's going to be at the Dean and Barbara White Community Center in Maryville, Indiana. It's on Broadway Street. It's Elite Fight Night 25, and they're donating part of the proceeds to the DAV.
Okay.
And it's the title of this fight is Support Your Patriot. So it's a veteran who is the promoter of the fight, and it's we want to get as many veterans as we can out there to support it. I think it's something new that I haven't really seen, so I think it'd be a great opportunity, and I think it'd be fun.
Oh, fantastic! You need to send us that information, and we can post it. But I definitely, this sounds like a lot of fun, and that's on the 9th, right, of November.
Yeah, that's on the 9th of November, and tickets start at $60, okay. And the doors open at 5:30. And I'll get you a flyer so we can put that on there. And then on November 17th, it's a Sunday, we're going to have our 4th annual tribute to all veterans dinner at the Hard Rock Casino in Gary. It's off of 8094. And, we had it, this is our 3rd year having it there. And the casino has been very generous with us. And they have made this a great, event for us. The first year we had it, we had Jessica Lynch, the POW from the Iraq War. She was the guest speaker. Really? And it was very touching. And so we're going to have that November 17th. Starts at 4 p.m. Uh-huh. The title of this one is going to be Winning the Battle at Home. Mm-hmm. And if anybody wants any tickets or wants some information, they could contact Bob Carnegie at 219-629-0594.
Fantastic. And Hard Rock Casino, huh?
Yeah. They got good food too.
Yeah, and that sounds like an interesting night.
Yeah, take some extra money.
Oh yeah.
How are you doing?
Oh, doing good.
Good.
Yeah. I've been, bringing on some incredible veterans. We had one on earlier today. This guy was a helicopter pilot, for Vietnam, and then he ended up going and becoming an F-16 pilot.
Wow.
What a jump.
Yeah, that is.
Really incredible guy. But yeah, so what about the actual Veterans Day? Anything hopping off on that day that you're going to be doing?
The only thing that I know of for Veterans Day is I know they have something at it's in Lansing. It's at the Veterans it's a Veterans Memorial in Lansing. It's the one that has the helicopter. It's by the airport.
Right. I've seen, yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one's a good one. There's also an event that's during the day. It's at Lake Central High School, and it's become a big event because
Mhm.
what they do is the veterans go for breakfast, and then they will usher all the veterans into the gymnasium. And when they do that, the whole school is already there. And this school it's one of the biggest schools in the area. So the gymnasium is just filled with kids, and
Mhm.
it's like all you get awestruck when you walk in there because there's so many people, and it's become a good event. It's they
Mhm.
have that at Lake Central on Veterans Day. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and I think that starts at 8 in the morning at Lake Central High School.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I had, recently, I'm not sure if you knew him, but there was a uh, General Patrick Ray who passed away about he passed away, and then about 2 weeks ago, we had a funeral for him, and
Oh,
he actually was the president of a bank. He was really the person who was the key figure in building the Tinley Park Convention Center, the uh,
wow.
the golf course that's Odyssey Golf Course, and he built a lot of businesses up and down Oak Park Avenue. So he was part of the Sovereign Military Order of the Temple of Jerusalem, which I'll talk to you about later too. But they
Okay.
are actually knighted. He was formally knighted, by overseas. So we had a person from who was a key bishop in Jerusalem come over to officiate his service. So we had people come
Wow.
overseas and around around the country, but we have so many people who we have to be grateful for, that are passing on now. They're getting older, and I just got
Yeah.
like a shockwave. We had an earlier person on who was talking about breast cancer in women veterans, and the thing that really hit me was like and this is about 2 days ago. I was working out, then I started thinking about it, and I said, uh, OEF OIF happened almost 20 years ago. I was like,
Yeah.
wait,
How
what?
crazy is that? It's over
Right.
20 years.
Yeah. So these people are almost going into their 40s. And it was the time that they need to be coming forward for the, breast cancer screening. So,
Yeah.
so what are some of the things in the DAV that you're doing right now, in chapter 17? Anything popping right now? I know we're going into the winter months and we have too many veterans on the street still.
Yeah.
We just had a stand down at Post 311, that was really successful. We had about 200 veterans come through. Um,
That's
but
huge. That's nice.
yeah, 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 yeah. But
I mean,
anything,
I think the problem
yeah,
is that there's, when we have our meetings and there's a lot of veterans that come there and they're coming there for claims work, it's good that they're coming to the DAV for help, but at the same time, you see how many veterans need help, and it's a lot, and it is kind of sad.
yes, yes, yeah. And then I see Glenda posted your announcement on the on our link already. These events coming up. Uh, I think she probably wants to try to win some money at the casino, so that's fine.
Don't we all?
I will. Don't be surprised if you see me there.
I when the summertime ends, it is a big time because it's not just the winter that's coming, but the holidays that come up,
Oh,
and a lot. Some of these veterans they don't have a support structure like some of us have. They don't have the family, and this is when a lot of veterans get depressed. Start having a lot of anxiety, and it's a good time to do your buddy checks on them and check on them.
mhm.
It's a shame. I was talking to one guy earlier, and we were actually talking about a gentleman that we knew that had passed during COVID,
Oh, really?
and it was sad because nobody really knew his where he lived and stuff, so we didn't know how to find him until they found him like 3 weeks later, and it was it's something that could
Mhm.
have been prevented, something that at least we then could have alerted the authorities if something had happened. And he passed from natural causes. It's
Mhm.
just he was alone, so nobody really called to check on him. And that's some of the things that we try to reach out to the homeless veterans during this time, but it's not just the homeless veterans. There's veterans that have jobs and have families that they're also struggling during this time as well.
Yes, yeah. And then we have, veterans, the auto place that's opened up, the home for veterans. And
Yeah,
yeah, that was a big, exciting thing.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
yeah. So, when you were saying that, you just made me think and realize we need to be going to the hospitals. We need to go to the veterans' homes and give them something for the holiday. Say hello, a candy cane,
Yeah,
whatever you can bring to to help out the veterans, and that's we all should be doing that, um, and thanking them for their service. If you walk
yeah,
through a hospital and you see a veteran that needs help, and and their family members, like you said, they have spouses and children, and you know, uh, particularly with the elderly veterans passing away, they leave a spouse, and their spouse is going to be by themselves.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and I know one particular pastor. He was in a service. He retired as a lieutenant colonel, but he was with his wife for 54 years, and we just sat down and started talking because it was the first anniversary of her death. Just
Oh,
And he was like, wow, he said 54 years. I went over to and put some flowers down and that kind of thing. And it just, it reminded me she's not going to come back. And he just misses her. So just having someone there for them and sit down, have a lunch, or take them out to lunch, dinner, breakfast, and, talk to these people because they gave their lives, many of the things that they missed out on actually from deployments and that kind of thing, with meeting with family members. Those things they sacrifice for us to have time to be
yeah,
with our families. So
yeah.
as citizens, we need to realize, the sacrifice they made. But yeah, you sounds like you're on top of the game. So anything else happening within the post over there, or
You know, I there was one thing that I learned today, and I wanted to
oh,
share it with you because I don't know if a lot of veterans know
yeah,
about this. I didn't even really know about this. So I went by the
okay,
vet center it's the Gary area vet center. It's in Crown Point, but they have vet centers all around the area. And they were telling me about the vet center, and I didn't know the vet center was created by Vietnam vets, and it
hmm,
was an alternative to the VA back when the Vietnam vets, they didn't get good service at the time, so they didn't trust the VA, so they
right,
want an alternative. And what happened was it became kind of a success where veterans felt comfortable going there for counseling and bereavement.
wow,
And you don't have to
that is nice.
be eligible for VA benefits to go there. You can,
Oh,
so it's free of charge. The spouses of veterans who pass can go there. They can't give you medication, but as far as going there, if you go there, the VA can't access their records, which to
right,
some guys is very important to them because they don't want the VA to know, like, what's going on with them.
right,
And
right.
I found, I've always thought the vet center was connected to the VA, but to
Mhm.
find all that out, I think that's a good alternative for some people. And I actually asked them how many were in the area, and there are approximately two, four, six. There's seven in the area, and I didn't even know
Really?
that. Yeah,
7.
yeah.
Wow.
There's one in Chicago, Forest Park, Orland Park, Evanston, Chicago Heights, and Aurora in the Gary area one.
And they're called vet
So
centers.
yeah, they're called vet centers. So
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
I just thought that was a good. So I asked them for the outreach coordinator. in case anybody did want to reach out to them. And his name's Kenneth Collins. His father is actually Jimmy Collins, who used to play for the Bulls. Yeah,
Oh,
and he
right.
used to coach for UIC. Yeah.
Wow. Get
So
out of
this
here.
is yeah. So his name is Kenneth Collins, and his phone number is 219-736-5633. And that's if anybody's interested to, go into the vet center. I like it because I like how the VA doesn't, they can't access the records.
Wow. Yeah. And that's really interesting because we have so many veterans who are homeless and they have no place to turn. And that sounds like a wonderful option for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The VA has their programs. Like they have the homeless program, where if
Right.
you're homeless, you can go to the VA,
Mhm.
and what they'll do is they'll put you on a list where you can potentially get a HUD voucher. And but the problem is it takes time.
Right.
And when you go to somewhere like a vet center, they have the community resources there where, maybe there's a township that helps with that. Like I know the township around here, they will help you with first month's, or they'll help you with the rent if you're like having
Mm.
problems paying or getting into a place. So that, there's options out there. It's just a lot of people don't know what's out there. They don't know what's available.
Yeah. 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 And and especially people who disabled veterans, because it's hard sometimes for them to interact with systems and figure out how what's available. How do I get there?
Yeah.
What kind of transportation do I have? Those kinds of issues that we sort of take for granted. We just walk to places and think everyone's sort of operating in the same way when it's not true.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. But that's amazing. So I'm sure Glenda's grabbed that information. It will be appearing on the screen at some at some point. But that's fantastic. So there are some options for them, and especially for family members too, because if they have children and they are unable to afford insurance for them, we have the ACA. We just had a big talk about the ACA and the importance of sustaining that entity. That we have about 20 million people who signed up this year, who are American citizens, and that kind of support is really needed.
Yeah.
But this sounds like it's another avenue too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah. But so anything else exciting going on in the world of disability advancement? I mean, we have you know uh, new things coming out all the time, new technology, new things that can help our veterans, to progress. Um, we have to find a way of making sure we're connecting as well. I always worry about that. Whether those things that are out there that like the systems for reading, for telephonic communication, all of that, whether our veterans are getting it, the hearing aids, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then yeah, recently I went in for a hearing test, and they told me, well, you're able to get hearing aids. I was on helicopters, and cannons, all that. So they said, and I said, well, my wife told me that years ago.
Yeah, right.
so, so maybe I don't want them.
That's all. So let her hear that.
No, no. But so
And the
laughing at that.
VA has made great strides when it comes to technology wise. They used to have e-benefits, which they merged into VA.gov.
Okay.
And they had My Health eVet and then e-benefits. So they
Okay.
tried to merge them into VA.gov. So it was kind of a one-stop shop.
Mhm.
So technology wise, they're definitely advancing at a good rate. I think the problem is, a lot of people are not caught up with the technology, and you know how it is. The VA. it's the biggest government agency, so there's a lot of red tape. But at the same time, they've made it easy in some aspects, but that's only if you understand how to do it.
Right.
And that's I like helping veterans when it comes to that, because it doesn't it doesn't have it. The VA is not what it was 20 years ago. And some of these guys are coming for the first time because they heard such bad things about it, or they had a bad experience themselves 30 years ago. So they're coming for the first time, and the PACT Act is what really brought them, because the PACT Act opened so many doors,
Yes.
for Vietnam veterans, Iraq veterans. So, they opened the doors where these guys are coming for the first time, and that's why there's a little bit of a backlog with the VA,
Yeah.
because they had a hiring blitz, but just hiring the people doesn't fix it automatically, because you have to train them. You
Yeah.
have to, get them acclimated to this, doing claims, and it's, so there's a little bit of a backlog, but it did open the doors to a lot. I mean, just the hypertension alone for Vietnam vets was huge.
Yeah.
The VA for a long time said that it was, more because of old age, but when you see the studies and you see how many veterans have gotten that particular illness,
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to deny it at that point.
Yeah, and that's another thing that the data is really and I was talking to our former speaker, but it was Eldridge Johnson, and he was the veteran I was talking about with going to the F-16s, and so he was getting into drones and all that. And we had an hour talk about technology, and it was just like my brain was burning by the time I finished. I was having a meltdown, but we started talking about AI and all that. But that's going to have an impact directly on our ability to start analyzing some of this data and to make the connections of things that are happening. The PACT Act was like a tremendous boom for us, for veterans to actually be recognized for things. We didn't have to wait, like the Vietnam veterans, to have the benefits, awarded to us posthumously,
Yeah.
for Agent Orange, right? um, this was a huge step forward. But then the data that's coming out of it, and the way that they're tracking data right now, is going to have a direct impact, I think, on how veterans are perceived in the future.
Yeah.
The burn pits, and how can you, I was looking at some of the reports recently on necropsy studies. So they do these after a person has passed away. So these veterans had normal chest X-rays, right? And they were being seen by private care physicians and some people in the VA, but they were looking at that and saying, well, this chest X-ray looks normal, and they would even do sometimes MRI scans, and say, oh, everything looks great. And then when they did the necropsy studies, they looked at the tissue and found out they were finding metals inside of the tissue, and they were finding titanium. They were finding
Wow.
all of these different things that were actually part of the architecture of the tissue in the lung. And the silica dust and that kind of thing that you get
Yeah.
exposed to. We know silicosis can be a really terrifying disease if you have silicosis. But and so they started looking at this and saying, wait a minute, these people do have an impact, a physical impact. We see this here. And that there was also, with TBI, they started looking at the gray matter in the brain and saying, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. uh,
Yeah.
so this data, I think, is really going to be essential to make sure our veterans are taken care of and followed appropriately, for
Oh,
their
I completely agree.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, the TBI one,
Mhm,
I know that one because I have TBI, and
mhm, mhm,
when they first explained it to me, you kind of get the sense that it was from something major like an explosion, or
mhm.
something major. But when you really look at it, TBI, traumatic brain injury, is the rattling of your brain inside the cranium. And that can happen from a concussion. It can happen from hitting your head on a bunk hard, a fight, a car accident. There's a number of ways that it could happen. And, you know, I've noticed that I have real bad migraines at least two, maybe three times a week sometimes.
Oh boy.
Um, you know, sometimes my speech can be, so what happens is I can think of the words, but when I'm talking, it seems like I talk so fast that it comes mumbled.
Ah,
And
okay.
and you know, these are things that you just kind of dismiss at first, but as you get older, TBI might get a little worse. These things become more prominent in how everyday life.
Right.
And it's how it is, like the Vietnam vets. The Vietnam vets didn't know they had any problems until 20 years later, 30 years
That's right.
later.
Yeah. And they call that a latency period. So it's the same thing like with asbestos for lung cancer, and also people who have silica exposure in lungs. That's talking about silicosis and mesothelioma you hear about on TV all the
You
time
know,
with the lawyers. But we're running out of time, um, as usual. But we're going to have you back on, of course. And I'm going to get my money ready for the Hard Rock Casino on November 17th in Gary, Indiana at 4 p.m. I'll be there sharp. And also, you have two other events that are in our site now, or are on our line. So, but very, very, as always, Steve, it's always wonderful talking to you. And thank you for what you do for our veterans.